let you disappear. I haven't seen you in a while. I chose to fight but should have cried. Now I deny your right to fight. I haven't seen you in a while now.
I don't really want to rush through this.
Tell if you're quiet or
I don't want to really want to. Wait. I don't really want to wash through this, right? So let's take our time and then let's do this breakdown. Let's get this done. Okay, so from yesterday's market, you've been playing with us, huh? Let's go lower. Okay. I'm gonna start here. I'm gonna move it there. And then okay, so from a 30-minute, we could see price is in the uptrend, right? So from there, up, right, up. So yesterday, that's where we were at. So I think it was this here somewhere, here. And around what time it was, let me see what time it was. Around 11, 12, yeah. 11, 12, price just dropped like crazy, right? To this level. So basically it came down and then they all grab all this liquidity, right? And then push back up. So as of yesterday, we had this level that created. So we're gonna mark that level. We're gonna mark that level. Okay. And also we have this high. Okay. So on the 5, what do we have? We have, okay, price coming up. Alright, this is a level. Okay. And we also have this high. Okay. From this only, what do we have? Price on a downtrend, right? Price broke, closed below, but came back up. Came back up. So I'm gonna leave this. I'm not gonna touch this. Waiting for price to create more. To create clear. Okay. Let's see how price react when you break out of these two ranges. Okay, so what can happen is if we see price coming up here, we're gonna target this level, and that's, let me see, that's 12 bit range, right? And if we come down, I will target, like, I'm gonna say here. I'm gonna put this lower, right? And because we have crazy news today. Let me see. Yeah. Oh, 8:30. Oh, CPI forecasted. Shit's so neutral, but it's looking like they aiming high. Okay, so we have news. And it's 18. It's less. It's probably like what? 13? No, 12. Wait, 11. Okay, so the thing is, right now we can't really okay, so the thing is, right now we are just stuck in between, right? Because you grab liquidity up, you grab liquidity up, you grab liquidity down. So now what are we gonna wait for is probably something like that, right? But we know price won't do that because there's big news, right? So it might drop, create structure, and then drop more. Or if it's going up, it's gonna do that, and then somewhere along the way it's gonna create more structure. So we're just gonna wait.
Life goes better than formula. It's kind of an Armageddon, you know. It's already too late. And I have a panoramic view of this thing. A lot more destroyed. It's already too late.
Whoa. Whoa. Damn.
That means you did the same mistake on CPI. Yeah, I did the same mistake on CPI the last time it happened. Why isn't this open? Fucking now is it open? Oh, wow, look at this, man. Still pushing up. Still pushing up. Take a look at this. In this CT
Yeah, I just bought out more awards because you've been winning shit all year, so I figured I'd just get in front of it. Here you go. Take all that right there. All right? Yeah, well, that's your problem, not mine. You won them. I don't have to be responsible for how you get out of here with them. It is what it is. I love you, boy. And everything, man. Show my guys some love, man. One time, Kendrick. Yeah, I just bought out more awards because you've been.
How you doing, fellas? Help you some?
Put your nose on the floor, you fucker! Okay.
Don't you do nothing. My man came in here last week. He told you I wanted your stove.
This whole neighborhood belongs to the East Side Crips. I'm under their protection. I mean, if you want to, you can talk to them.
Nah, I like that, yeah.
Hey, what's up, cuz?
My name is David Hagen. Listen, you gonna go up against me, I'll kill you.
Oh, Jesus! No!
Come on, Dennis. Tell him I shot your son.
Come on.
Eli.
No, Dennis! What about him?
I don't know, genius. Figure it out.
It's number 4.
Jerry, Thomas Cole.
Oh my God.
Social Security number 434605.
Okay, and what he just said does not constitute an action.
Your client
I'm
just
sorry.
read.
I believe my client has not been formally identified.
That's him.
How you doing, fellas?
Check. How much should I tip him? Can we do a check, please? The check? Yeah. Chat, no, wait, this was $12.50. That is so cheap. All right, chat. I'm full now. I'm leaving. Whoa! Very good. So good. There you go. That food was good. Trucker.
Wow.
What?
Snoop, your homie Dr. Dre just became a billionaire last year, and you should be proud. There's not a lot of black billionaires. There's Dr. Dre and the guy that sells you weed. I mean, you are a legend, which is a nice way of saying you old as You only do it doggy style now because it's easier on your lower back.
We got Ludacris in the mother house.
Luda! I love that song of yours where you said, if you a pimp and you know you don't love them hoes, that shit was tight. But you know who else said that was tight? Me, 15 years before you did it. Stop biting my shit. But here's one of Ludacris's original rhymes. There's hoes in the room. There's hoes in the car. There's hoes on the stage. There's hoes by the bar. Are you a rapper or Dr. Seuss?
Snoop, your homie.
So how long have you been like that?
Like what?
Like this. Big, green, stupid.
Hulk, always Hulk.
How'd you arrive here?
Quinjet.
Yes. Where is the Quinjet now? Oh, that's naked. He's very naked. That's in my brain now. Getting us out of here. We love Asgard.
Dog go. Hulk's dead.
Fine. Stupid place. It's hideous, by the way.
Smash you.
Just didn't smash anything. I won that fight.
I smashed you.
Yeah, sure.
Baby arms.
What?
Baby.
Moron. Big child.
Dog go.
I am going.
Dog go again.
So how long have you been like that?
Like what?
Like this. Big, green, stupid.
Hulk, always Hulk.
How'd you arrive here?
Quinjet.
Yes. Where is the Quinjet now? Oh, that's naked. He's very naked. That's in my brain now. Getting us out of here. We love Asgard.
Dog go. Hulk's dead.
Fine. Stupid place. It's hideous, by the way.
Smash you.
Just didn't smash anything. I won that fight.
I smashed you.
Yeah, sure.
Baby arms.
What?
Baby.
Moron. Big child.
Dog go.
I am going.
Dog go again.
So how long have you been like that?
Like what?
Like this. Big, green, stupid.
Hulk, always Hulk.
How'd you arrive here?
Quinjet.
Yes. Where is the Quinjet now? Oh, that's naked. It's very naked. That's in my brain now. Getting us out of here. We love Asgard.
Doggone.
We can all agree that e-bikes are incredible for daily commuting, but the
Nobody believed Master.
All right, Troop, you're next. Get in the chair.
The dumbest one on that list is having one source of income you don't.
Tired of typing tons of notes during class? There's finally a better way. It's called Otter. Let's say I'm in class. I just hit record.
How did you go into our relationship differently? Because when we met, I think we were both really clear about what we wanted in terms of support in achieving our goals. It was like 2 weeks ago, I want to say, that we were talking about it, and we correlated pretty much every high performer in the company with having immense support, if not encouragement, not even just support, but encouragement from their significant other, or they don't have one, or have one that is aloof, meaning they're just not interfering with their career. And so that creates an environment in which they are a top performer. Or at least the way I see it is, I care less about the fact that it affects their job here. I care more about the fact that it affects their life and their goals. And I think what it led to, like, a bigger discussion for us was just like how many people that we know that they chose the wrong person, and because they chose the wrong person, their life has not turned out how they wanted it to.
Yeah, I think when I was thinking more about it after because we talked like a whole evening on just this one topic.
And in the morning.
Yeah, it was like, which is actually a pretty meaty discussion for us to do, like a 2-day topic on it. I was thinking about it more, and I think there's like 4 levels of spouse or significant other interference or support in someone's life. So on the most negative, you have somebody who's actively trying to sabotage the person's job. So they're like, anytime the person's frustrated, they lean into the frustration. So they're like, yeah, they do suck. You know what? They shouldn't work you that hard. You shouldn't have to do these things, right? Lots of shoulds. And I think an alternative version of that negative is the competitive spouse who wants to beat their spouse. And like if the spouse gets ahead, then they see that as a bad thing. And I think that happens more often in unmarried partnerships than married, but I still think it happens in both because they don't see it as one pot. It's still like 2 separate bank accounts or 2 separate scoreboards rather than like our collective scoreboard. I think 1 degree after that, you have the neutral, the aloof. So like, you have a job, I don't want to hear about it, but just as long as it doesn't interfere with what we want to do, which I think oftentimes that ends up over time becoming the negative because the more involved the person gets in their career, the more they will, quote, bring work home with them because their work is their life and they just are really interested in it and want to talk to the person they care the most about with it. And I think that the degree after that is you have support, like the active support. And I think for most people, this is like the best that most people will end up getting. I think the 4th, which is extremely rare, is where the person actively helps more often in unmarried partnership.
Their job here, I care more about the fact that it affects their life and their goals. And I think what it led to, like a bigger discussion for us was just like how many people that we know that they chose the wrong person, and because they chose the wrong person, their life has not turned out how they wanted it to.
Yeah, I think when I was thinking more about it after because we talked like a whole evening on just this one topic.
And in the morning.
Yeah, it was like, which is actually a pretty meaty discussion for us to do, like a 2-day topic on it. I was thinking about it more, and I think there's like 4 levels of spouse or significant other interference or support in someone's life. So on the most negative, you have somebody who's actively trying to sabotage the person's job. So they're like, anytime the person's frustrated, they lean into the frustration. So they're like, yeah, they do suck. You know what? They shouldn't work you that hard. You shouldn't have to do these things, right? Lots of shoulds. And I think an alternative version of that negative is the competitive spouse who wants to beat their spouse. And like if the spouse gets ahead, then they see that as a bad thing. And I think that happens more often in unmarried partnerships than married, but I still think it happens in both because they don't see it as one pot. It's still like two separate bank accounts or two separate scoreboards rather than like our collective scoreboard. I think 1 degree after that, you have the neutral, the aloof, the like, you have a job, I don't want to hear about it, but just as long as it doesn't interfere with what we want to do, which I think oftentimes that ends up over time becoming the negative, because the more involved the person gets in their career, the more they will, quote, bring work home with them, because their work is their life and they just are really interested in it and want to talk to the person they care the most about with it. And then I think the degree after that is you have support, like the active support. And I think for most people, this is like the best that most people will end up getting. Yeah. I think the fourth, which is extremely rare, is where the person actively helps the individual. And that's where you see like working spouses, working relationships where they like actually work together towards the same goal. And I think that's still, I mean, I used to think there's like cheerleader, fullback, which is like this person's cheering for you and this person's on the field, and I equated them. But I actually, the more I've thought about it, the more I think if we're just talking long term, then how could you make the argument that somebody who's actually helping you actively rather than just eliminating other things that distract you? So one is removing negatives, and the other one is like actively adding positives too.
And I think that can look different for different people, meaning like adding positives can be that somebody makes work easier for you by what they do at home. You know, like the way that they take care of the house, the way they take care of the kids, you know, things like that. And they encourage you to keep doing work the way you want to do work. Or it could be like us, where it's like, you know, we're all in on doing the same thing together.
I think why we were thinking about this more is that like we've seen people who have potential, who we've hired, we've brought on the team, and through a poor mate selection, they have gone from rising stars to stagnant or even declining, because it's kind of like this continual, it's kind of like if you're driving a car quickly, like a tiny steer in direction doesn't change very much when the person's a low or mid-level person, but as they move up, it's like the car goes faster, and each tiny little veer in direction makes a bigger change in the person's trajectory. And so I think this was just like a theme that we've seen, and then we tried to like back validate it. We were like, okay, let's look at past companies, let's look at past employees, let's look at all these different scenarios, and it just seemed to be like a 100% correlation. It was like we could not find a scenario where we had someone who consistently moved up, consistently improved, consistently got better, and didn't have a spouse that was basically all in with them on their career.
I don't know if you remember this, but when we first got married, I remember someone telling us that a healthy marriage, or partnership more so is how it was positioned, most partnerships that are what people consider normal, when one spouse is down and they're thinking negatively about something, they're having a hard time, they're struggling, the other spouse is here, and then they come down here with that spouse. And what this person told me that reinforced how we interact is when one of us is down, the other one doesn't go down with them. Like if one of us is feeling negative about something, I actively am like, oh, I'm not going to feed into that. I'm going to remind of the goal. I'm going to remind of all the hard work. I'm going to remind of what you want, and you do that for me too. It's like encouraging. It's not like, oh no, don't talk about that, but it's, you can do it. You're so fucking strong. You've got all these things going for you. You've worked so hard. This is going to pass in a week, like all of these things. And I think what you see is just like over time, enough times somebody just pulls you down and pulls you down and pulls you down. It feels like they're being empathetic in a way, but they're actually just sowing seeds of doubt. And they're feeding into like what our brains do, which is always go towards the negative. What resonated with me is when I heard someone say you have to make it home to the dinner table. If you really want to help someone skyrocket their career, you have to make it home to the dinner table, and it has to be good news at the dinner table.
Well, I'll say two elements. So one thing is when you have a spouse or a significant other who's at home and you have that negative day, right? What happens, and I can understand why that significant other will take the next steps I'm about to say, which is they both reward the positive behavior. They reward with something different than work, and they punish talking about work in a negative way. And so that creates a two-sided incentive that makes it really hard for the person who is struggling with work to talk more about it or work more, because then the partner associates work with negative, and says, don't talk about that, or like they're pushing you too hard, right? So that's them basically punishing them talking about this thing they're trying to get through. And then also says, hey, why don't we take some time and watch Netflix? Why don't we go out with friends? Why don't we whatever? And so in an attempt to help the partner, they end up creating a positive contingency around them not working and a negative contingency around them working, which are two separate things, but they do them both simultaneously. And so when you do that on a consistent basis, it ends up, this is where we're talking about like what happens over the long term. This is those little NASCAR moves where like a little bit like it happens once and then it happens again and then the car starts steering. And so that person who was otherwise a really big contributor all of a sudden doesn't find themselves dedicating discretionary effort and time towards the work or their career because everything they do at home is punished and they have alternatives to work that are given to them by their spouse that are quote reinforcing. But where it gets especially tricky is where that spouse or partner then wants this person, they want to enjoy the fruits of a really good career, but actively are punishing the person for talking about their work and actively distracting them from the work that they do. So it makes it even harder for them to succeed. And so at some point, the rubber hits the road, and I think most times the rubber doesn't hit the road, it just happens in the person's career. So the rubber hit, like reality has to set in at some point. Either the conversation has to be had where it's like, hey, this career is really important to me, and so I need to be able to talk about this stuff, or I need to be able to like just work through it out loud, and that's just how I process things, and I just need you to support me. And like that's where you start giving instructions and directions on like, when I say this stuff, this is what I would like you to do. Rather than you hear me say something negative and you take that as direction to encourage negativity and then distract me. Like fundamentally, like that's how you translate me coming home upset, which long term makes me worse at my job, which net on our whole life is not a good thing because then my career will get off track and then we'll both suffer.
Has this ever happened to you?
Yeah. I mean,
I'm curious because, like, from my perspective, obviously, like, it's more traditional for like a guy to be like, I don't want you to work so much because, like, how are you going to do all this other stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm used to getting that until I met you. But I'm curious for you. Yeah,
I was like, go make money, baby.
But I'm curious for you, like, what was like, how did you handle that, and how did you go into our relationship differently? Because when we met, it was so clear to me. I think we were both really clear about what we wanted in terms of support in achieving our goals.
Well, I'll say I had two relationships prior that had two of the scenarios that I talked about. So one was the competitor, where it's like both of us were trying to compete with like who was going to achieve more, and so that was kind of like very subversive, very like passive aggressive, which then I think long term ends up creating more space between you, and then you're both kind of driving these separate lanes, but not because of the benefit of the whole. You're just driving. You're basically growing apart. So I've gone through that and I didn't like it. And so then a different scenario was actually more akin to what I was describing earlier, which is why I feel like I have more like emotion around it, which is where you have someone who's really well intentioned and wants to help, but wants to help by getting you to not work and not talk about work. And so that like the way that looked was like, I'm like, hey, these are all the things that are stressing me out. And it's like, okay, enough talk about work for you. Let's talk about my day. And I was like, man, I don't really care about your day. I'm still not done processing my day right now. And so the thing is like, if work is the thing that means the most to me in my life, then it's like, I no longer can talk about the thing that I care about most. That's tough when I'm talking to the person that I care about most.
So then going into our relationship, after you got out of those two relationships, what did you decide?
Well, for me, it was like, and I probably have better words for this now than I did then, but it was like, I decided that my relationship with my goals was my most important relationship. And so I was like, I'm just not willing to sacrifice my relationship with that for anyone. And so that became one of my non-negotiables going in. Whereas before it wasn't a non-negotiable, it wasn't even a discussion because I just didn't, to be fair, I just didn't have that much experience with it overall, or at least the goals that I had of like studying hard or things like that were, I guess, more commonplace. But I was just like, this is the thing that matters most to me right now. And so like, you can get on this train or you cannot, but like this train's leaving.
Was that hard for you at first?
No.
I didn't think so.
I mean, at the beginning of our relationship,
it's funny because like I can't picture you.
Yeah, I know.
Even tolerating that.
I know.
And I am just, I've never been that person, so I can't, but I see it happen all the time, you know?
What was that? I mean, it was a decision, right? It was like this, I mean, it was, you know, it's like you learn through experience. You're like, okay, I thought this wouldn't matter. I thought the traditional setup would work. And I think maybe for some people it does, but for me, I was like, this is my life. This is like, these goals mean a lot to me. And if I were to play out the alternative scenarios of like, I have a meaningful relationship, but I don't achieve any of my goals, or I achieve my goals and I don't have a meaningful relationship, I would rather have the goals. But I think that there's a way where I could have the goals and the relationship as long as the relationship is aligned with my goals. And so then you can have both. But I think a lot of people are afraid, and because they feel like the false choice exists and there is no alternative, they just choose, well, I'd rather not be alone, which I can understand. But I think that I had never felt more alone than when I was in a relationship where I felt internal conflict between what I cared about most and who I cared about most.
I think we've both probably defined goals the same way, which is like the reason that the goals mean more than the person is because the goals are actually your relationship with yourself.
So it really isn't what I care about most and who I care about most. It's that it's like, it feels selfish to say, but it's like you have to care about you more than you care about the relationship. And I think it's very much you have to put your air mask on before helping others. You know, it's the ethical workaround that people have seem to sleep well with in society. But like, if you feel unfulfilled in what you do with the vast majority of your life, most people will spend more time working than doing anything else in their lives, which is really just the relationship that you have with what you do on your own. That's tough to sacrifice all of that just to not be alone. But the thing is like, I think that's a false answer. It's like you are alone because you're not able to be you. And so then you start having a split life where you're one person at work, which is who you really are. And then you have one person that you have to act like at home. You can't talk about the same topics. You can't think the same things. Now, some people are like, well, I want to leave work at work, which is fine. It's just that's not how I work.
I think it's also interesting because like when I was thinking about it, when you talk about like goals, I think most people when they hear us say that, they think, oh, it's like work, monetary goals. But I think there's so many different things it can be because we've seen it where it's not just that a spouse conflicts with I would say like a monetary goal, but like a spouse conflicts with personal goals like health, like other like so many other things that somebody's looking to achieve. I mean, I would say health is probably one of the first ones.
Yeah, let's stay in and eat Cheetos, and you're like, hey, I'm trying to like, no, it's like, hey, like let's have some fun. And it's like, well, that means that any time that, because when you say a statement like that, it also means that any time that I'm actually trying to pursue my goals, you are implying the opposite, that it is not fun. And I'm like, I reject the premise. The reason I think this is so important is that when I look at my life and what I've achieved, who was in my corner had the largest influence on that. Like, I look at what I was able to achieve on my own versus with someone who was actively working against me. And I don't think that was deliberate by any stretch of the imagination. But just if we look at what happens as a result of this person, not intention, not desire, not goodwill, but just when this person is in my life, it is less likely that I achieve my goals. Just simply stating it like that, I was less likely to achieve my goals. I struggled with business in the early days. And then when I went on my own, I did much, much better. Just working, like basically, if I removed interference, I simply did much better. And then when you came in my life, not only did I remove interference, but I now had support. I had, like, before a bad day gets worse because the person feeds into the bad day and distracts and says, well, hey, we have these other, things that are also important, which if that's what that person wants, that's fine. It just might not mean that I'm the person for them, which obviously I wasn't. Once we were aligned, it's like your negatives become neutral and your positives become super positives. And I think, the difference, everybody in the world looks at the monetary change, but I look at the my personal change of who I was able to become as a result of having the support. And I think the business growth was just a consequence of personal growth.
I think why it's so important is also because you become like the people you spend the most time with.
Yep.
And so when I look at myself and getting into the relationship with you, I'm like, I'm going to become more like him in some ways. Now, I would say that the more intelligent somebody is, the more deliberate they can be. Because I know some really intelligent people who are with people who are maybe not so intelligent. They're very deliberate about not, assimilating anything from that person. But I think like we've both learned a lot from each other. And what scares me is to think, what would you learn from a person if they are not someone that you aspire to be like?
If people pick their spouses like, who do I want to become like? They would pick very different spouses.
I mean, I think it's such an interesting topic to me because growing up, watching, my parents got divorced and then they dated all these different people. Watching that and even just how much they changed and their personalities changed based on the person that they were with, I immediately was like, oh, you become like these people that you date. And if they have big areas that you do not fuck with, you might, if you're not careful, you absorb those areas. And so I think it's been really interesting because I think one thing that we've actually, I'll just say I think we've done well, is we try to take the best from each other. And then wherever, I think because we're kind of like things that I tend to stress more. And so I've learned a lot of acceptance from you, right? And then you tend to want to move really fast and you've learned patience from me. And so I would say like wherever each of us were like weaker, which I would say like in general, not weak, but like weaker, we've learned from each other. And so it's also been like very complimentary because there's no like big outpoints that either one of us have like absorbed. If anything, it's been like a net positive for both.
Yeah, and I think, for me, I've learned kindness from you. I would say that I was much less empathetic in general.
Less? No.
Yeah, less than that.
I know.
It's been a slow path. But no, I learned a lot of kindness from you, and I think that just to a degree, you've also gotten some teeth from me. No, for real. I think that there were too many times like that I saw, like in the early days of us, like even just dating, you had these relationships, friend or otherwise, that like you needed to be willing to cut, and people that took advantage of you, that you needed to be able to be like, no, like basically more standing up for you.
It's interesting because I feel like we both had those to a degree.
That's actually true. I think it's domain specific. Yeah,
it is
totally.
domain specific, and I think that it's that we listened to each other when we said like, hey, this person's not good for you, because we knew that we were aligned in that I was helping you achieve your goals and you were helping me achieve my goals.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
I think that that's the interesting part about it is like, there's so many times where somebody says, quit the job, cut the friend, do all, and you can't even trust it because they're not aligned with your goals.
Yeah.
And if somebody's not aligned with your goals and they have separate goals, then when they give you advice or they speak things to you about whatever your goals are, they're completely unaligned. I think that's that's the major advantage we have, is just that we have the same goal. Our paths there and how we want to develop ourselves within that greater goal are different, but we have that same big goal we're going towards. So it's like, if you win faster, I win faster. So we just know that we're aligned in that sense. And I think that's something that a lot of people miss out on because they don't get aligned on, are we trying to go the same place?
Yeah, I think both of us have done a good job of protecting one another.
And also like, at times being like, you didn't pick it the fuck up. There's been like a few times where you've been like, this is not a big deal. And I'll be like, okay, I believe you. You know what I mean?
It's interesting you said that I believe you rather than like, okay, I accept that, but it's like, I believe you. It's actually a little bit different.
Yeah. I think it's like, just thinking about the times where there's been times I think for both of us that we've been like, we got this. Like, we don't need to divulge into this. This is not a problem. This is not. And I feel like it is reduced the amount of drama for both of us in our lives and personally, I think, to such a degree that when I see these relationships where people are misaligned, it's almost like people want to capitalize on creating drama out of challenging situations for each other because it helps interfere with the other person's goal, which is good for this person because they don't want them to achieve their goals, because then it means something for them that's bad. They lose more of this person's time. They lose more of their interest. They become further grown apart. So it's like they're constantly trying to prevent this person from achieving their goals. And so it's like they
Whether
capitalize.
they say it or not.
Right.
Right.
And
Or
that's the thing.
conscious of it or not.
That's what's crazy is that I think everyone listens to like toxic people. It's like, I don't think anybody, most people in general, like I would not say are toxic. It's that they're misaligned. But then you call them toxic because they're misaligned. And so it's just twisted. It's like, you can have the nicest person in the world, but if they're completely misaligned with you, it's just still not going to help you.
I mean, I think the biggest filter that I've used for friendships and, significant other, obviously, is does having this person in my life increase the likelihood that I hit my goals? And I've just used that as my 100% razor for all relationships, friends or otherwise. And that also means that you can have somebody who you don't necessarily want to be friends with for a very long time, but if they increase the likelihood that you hit your goals, then there are things that you can learn from them. And I think that's been really valuable for me. And I think also there's a temporal component. So like, I mean, we talk about seasons a lot, right? And I think that a spouse who's not in the know or a significant other who's not in the know extrapolates everything to forever. Like whatever happens now is what it's going to be like forever, and then therefore I can't deal with it.
Seen a lot of that recently.
Uh-huh.
It's interesting, actually.
Right. And so...
Yeah, and because of that, I need you to not do these things that are going to help propel you towards your goals because I can't endure a season.
Right. And it's typically because that person's never even seen the person go through a season. So if you go from being, you know, basically, I'll use it like a simple me business owner example. It's like, well, if you're starting a business and you've been in a relationship with the person for a year or two, then it's like they've only seen that one thing and they don't even know what a season looks like. And I think seasons do last longer. So seasons are sometimes 3 years, 5 years. And some people aren't willing to deal with that, which I think is fine. It's just that if you are being influenced by that person, then be sure that that's the trade you want to make.
It's interesting because when I was listening to...
Because some trains only take off once.
It's tweet. Was it Jensen?
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because like he's one of the most successful people in this world. And I mean, he talked about it. He was like, I have unwavering support, and not even just support, but encouragement from everyone around me. He's like, and I do not think that anybody can achieve outlandish goals without that. It is a requirement, not a luxury. And when he said that, I was like, man, it's a requirement to have people like this around you. And that really made me think about, like, we have people come to us all the time and say, I have these goals. And what's hard for me is when they want help with every single thing besides the things that they don't want to look at, which are who are you surrounding yourself with in and outside of work. I don't want to touch what people do outside of work, but it has more influence. I mean, there's so many studies on this. Who you're with outside of work has more influence on your work than inside of work. It's so difficult because it's like, how do you toe the line between, I genuinely want to help people. I want them to achieve their goals, whether they be here or somewhere else. I also have my own, I know in their perspective, they're like, well, Layla obviously wants me to work harder and be here and all. It's like, I don't actually give a shit. Like, in general, I want you to be the best human you can be. But I also have...
I want you to work harder.
For sure. But it's been such an interesting line to toe because I can see so plain as day when it's interfering with someone's goals, even when it doesn't seem, it's not insidious. It never is. It's not, because the easy ones are the ones that are, it's just like, yeah, you should break up with that person. They're hitting you. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or whatever. But it's always the difficult ones. And then it's just interesting to see that.
And we were talking about this, and so when we got thinking about the word requirements, right? Like this is a requirement for success. This is a requirement for the next level. And maybe this spouse can support you up to this level of your career, but will not be able to support you for the next level. So it's in some ways, it's like that spouse, I think, you know, there's some Michelle Obama quote or something like that, but basically it's like, she does some quip that if she had dated a different guy, that guy would become president, whatever it is.
Oh, interesting.
Right? But insofar to say that her support was so meaningful that that's, you know, one of the things that got Obama elected. But I think that there's elements of truth to that concept, which is there are some significant others and some significant spouses that may only be able to be with you for this season. And then it's a tough reality that you'll have to face, which is either they need to change or you do, which often means you have to change your goals, which means you change yourself, or they have to change what they're willing to tolerate or what they're willing to accept, or you just find other people. And I think a lot of people really don't like that.
Yeah.
But when we were talking about this with regards to teammates, we even were like tossing around the idea of like, maybe we should be interviewing spouses, because it has such a, it has a perfect correlation. We could not find a single person that became, not only started well, but then continued to rise. And what was interesting is there were some people who had higher potential when they came into our companies, but then slowly faded or fizzled or got distracted, or, you know, like just, it was clear that their priorities changed, right? And in every one of those situations, there was a spouse who was pulling them out. And on the other hand, we had people who I would say had mediocre potential, but then we just kept seeing them just like improve and get better. And then we'd finally meet the spouse and be like, oh, this makes complete sense. Because, you know, in a guy situation, you know, the wife's like, whatever he needs so that he can do a good job, I'm here to support. So like, I've got the home front down. If he needs to work weekends or he has to work late, I get it. Like, you know, you guys have a job to do, and he loves his job and he loves this work. He finds it really meaningful, and I just want to support him in that because I love seeing him get his dreams, you know, his dreams come true. Like that, like when you have that at home, it's really hard to fail too.
I mean, I think of like, you know, Yasmin, and how like unwavering, huh? Yeah. Is the opposite, yes, but that's my reality, right? Yeah. And Ricky would literally do anything. He wore the Gym Launch swag. He wore the hat. He ran races in the Gym Launch swag. And he came when he could to like any company thing, and he'd be like, love you guys. You know, like just like all he did was try and support her so much that now he works here and they work together. Yeah. Because he, even when times were hard, he would message me and be like, she needs a little extra encouragement today. Like how, like, and I know she would get so pissed off when she would find out that he would message me, but I was like, we're both trying to help her achieve her goals. And that is like, I think about like why she's always been able to continuously improve and impress me with like how much she can take on. And it's because there's just, it's like if you were to test him, he's like, no, this is what's best for her. Yeah. She's growing, she's investing in herself. We're gonna figure it out. And like there's such a great team in how they work towards that. And then she does that for him too. But it always really impressed me. You know, I think that's like when we see Maggie and Kale, like how they were able to take on Gym Launch. Just like unwavering support in both directions. And the thing is, I think people think when you work in the same business that it's like, oh, you get the luxury of like having the same schedules and the same this. It's like, so often it's completely opposite. So it's like, you'll be like, hey, I'm not gonna make it for dinner. I'm like, cool.
I gotta do this speaking thing.
Do you want me to make you oatmeal so when you get home you got this thing? Do you wanna, you know what I mean? Or I'm like, hey, I can't, you know, have lunch together, do this, because like I'm handling this thing over here. It's like, yep, got it, understood. Like,
I wanna hit on the Maggie and Kel one because I think it's really interesting. Mm-hmm. So, and I think when and if they listen to this, they won't take this, they'll take it the right way.
Oh, okay.
I mean, Kale came in as a frontline sales rep. Mm-hmm. Maggie came in as a frontline customer service. And both of them, over years, worked their way up to the top 2 positions in that company. And so I see that as, when we talk about potential versus actual, they came in with few experiential skills, but because both of them reinforced working hard and doing a good job, and did this with a newborn kid and a young child, and you know, the gym that they had in the beginning, which they eventually, you know, sold and then continued to go more all in on this. Like that is the virtuous cycle of having a supportive spouse who gets what they see themselves as a unit. So they think of, and I think this is probably one of the bigger meta things between couples, is that unless you see the unit as one, it becomes very difficult to be supportive. And I also think that there was a high degree of trust between the spouses and us. Mm-hmm. So like with Yas, for example, it's like I think Ricky knows that we just want to help. Like we're never
it's been
gonna,
8 years.
Yeah,
like.
we just want to help. Like in whatever way we can, we just want to help. And I think there's trust there. And so if we were like, hey Ricky, I think she needs to work 7 days straight and she can't see the kids, which we would not ask that. But I'm just saying, like like that's my hypothetical extreme. He'd be like, if they're asking for this, they understand the cost and they still think it's worth it for her. And so there's a level of trust there. And I think that takes time to build and whatnot, but, and obviously it takes character and a track record to show that you have consistently delivered on the promises that you've made. But I think that's how you create lifers in terms of like, it's really just like families being involved in the success of a company and building a team more than just individuals.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think the piece on the unit too, it's like I even think about the verbiage we use with each other. It's like we're always like, thank God there's 2 of us.
All the time.
Literally like all the time. And I don't see it like when, it's so interesting when people are like, do you feel competitive? And I'm like, we're all,
yeah.
How, what? Like, I'm like, I enable so that he can win. You enable so that I can win. We know what we're both focused on and how we win together. It's such an interesting question. Because it's like, I even think people even sometimes closer to us are like, oh, well, it's like people don't know how close we really are, you know, or how in sync we are.
Yeah. That one's so interesting. Because I've heard you being on a podcast, they're like, do you ever feel competitive with Alex? It's like, it's like almost a demonstration of how little you understand our relationship.
Like, I create the environment for him to be competitive with other people.
Right. We are very competitive against other people.
Yeah. It's like being on the football team and you're like watching somebody, it just makes no sense.
Like if you're captain of the cheerleading team, you for some reason don't want the quarterback to score the winning touchdown because you want to look better than the quarterback does that day.
Yeah.
But if the team wins, everyone wins.
Yeah. It is, so interesting. And I'm trying to think of like, I don't even know what creates, because there are people that can be married or working together, but they don't have that level of,
all in.
They're not a team.
They're not all in.
Yeah. I don't know where that comes from. The only thing I can think is just us eating shit for 2 years, but.
I do think that, and this is me being a little pro-marriage, I do think that things feel different when you get married. Because I remember when we got married, and for us we didn't have a wedding. We just signed paperwork and we were officially married. We worked that morning and then we worked the next day. But I think there was a huge backdoor anxiety, or like worry of like that one potential of like, are they really in? And then I think at that point you can really just say like, this is us. Like this is our family. This is our unit. This is how this benefits the whole. And then the decisions should, in my opinion, should get made from there. And I think a lot of couples just never even get there, even when they are married. Because, I mean, marriage is still just like a legal contract. But at least for me, I intended to not get married again. And so I was like, all right, well, we're all in. We will make this work as long as we are both oriented towards growing.
I think that's actually the key, which is like, we both said, like, I don't want to have to be married twice. I want to be all in. Because we're both like, I don't want to have this to be.
Dear God, no.
I mean, the drama and the ups and downs of people that have to get divorced and do all this stuff, it's just like a waste of life. And so it's like, I think we both went in the fundamental belief that if we need to change, we will to make it work. And I think we have both adapted to each other in many ways that has also made us each better in our own. And I think we always look at it as like, like this will make me better as well. If it wouldn't, then that would be like, okay, if I would have to change, it's going to make me worse as a person and it's not aligned with my values, sure. But like, in what instance has that ever occurred? Never. It's always makes us better.
Yeah, I think the big one was the goal and mission alignment. Because if that, I think that like under what, because I think like, under what context would we not be together, right? It would be if one of our goals, if we didn't want the same thing fundamentally. And I think that's really just what it comes down to. And I think a lot of people don't pick their spouses based on what their shared goals are. I mean, some people don't even talk about their goals before they get married, which I find ridiculous. That was like our first date. I was like, first date, I was like, this is what I want to do. Would you like to come with me?
Yeah, but I think that's
literally.
Not. But it's because most people don't know their goals.
Yeah, fair.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think even now, like, we're able to articulate our goals so much better than we were in the beginning. We just knew we were like trying to fucking go places. You know what I mean? And like, I'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Hunger.
But it's been like, and if the goal shifted, it was more like it got clearer more than it changed.
Yeah.
It was blurry, but it was like in the beginning it was directional. It was like, I want to go this way, and we'll figure it out as we go. But if one day you were like, I don't want to build these things. I don't want to build hospitals and build cities and do this, all this, like see what two people can do in one lifetime. It would be very hard for me because it would be asking me to not be me.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I would be able to do that.
I wouldn't expect you to.
No, and I think that, I'm saying I think fundamentally because we've both shared that goal the whole time, I've never felt like I mean, we get probably, I'm sure, lots of flack from the internet for this, but like I've never felt like I've had to make sacrifices for you. Like I haven't had to compromise my goals, which is another way of saying like, I haven't had to compromise myself in order to be in our relationship.
Yeah. I think I was really nervous in the beginning. And then over time, you only continually reinforced to me that I could be myself. Because it was so many years of conditioning to hide what I really wanted. And I think that's actually like what you've taught me a lot is just like complete self-acceptance. a lot of it has been like me just sharing things with you of like how I really feel, or like some may say like the dark side, or like dark desires and the things that I want that feel in contrast with what maybe society projects on what I should want. And you've always just been like incredibly accepting every time. Even like when I was like, dude, I don't want to make dinner every night. I don't want to do all this stuff. And like, I was really worried. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is, but I was like, it's not aligned with my goals. Like me cooking dinner every night to be a good wife, I value myself here, leading people, making people's lives better. That lights me up. Making lasagna does not. And you were like, I don't even give a fuck.
Yeah, I said, if you want to make dinner, I will be happy that you made dinner. If you want to make money, I will be happy that you made money.
I mean, I think the question that people need to ask themselves is, does this person make it easier or harder to achieve my goals? And it doesn't mean that they're actively trying to sabotage you.
It doesn't mean they're a bad person.
No, it doesn't mean any of that. It's just like, it's that simple of a question. Also, I think the proxy to that is like, do I respect myself more or less being in a relationship with this person? That's something that I prompted to, you know, a friend of mine months ago when they were trying to navigate a really tough relationship. And I was like, I watch you lose respect for yourself every day that you're in a relationship, because this person is actually, you're trying to go towards your goals and they're actively dragging you away. It was somewhat active sabotage. And then it's like, not only are you not going towards your goals, but you're actually degrading your sense of self.
I think it's also the, like, what traits about this person do I admire, number one? Because whatever they have is going to rub off on me. And then if I see myself with a blend of my traits and theirs, is that new person more or less likely to achieve my current goals? And so like, I know that I need to be more patient. And so you having patience is like, yeah, if I had some of that rub off on me, that'd be a good thing. Hey, if I was a little more empathetic, that would probably rub off. That'd probably be a good thing. That'd probably increase the likelihood that I hit my goals. And I think a lot of people have really like significant others, just really like, blah, like just a human. Great, congrats. They're like, this person did not leave when I was there. It's like, well, that's cool.
It's actually interesting. Like, because we even met somebody who said like, I met this girl on a date and she just never left.
Yeah.
And that was why they were with them.
And they got married.
They're like, yeah, she like brought her bags and then we just like
first date
kept dating. I was like, do you ever pause to think that this is the right person for you?
Yeah, she just hung around. Again, it's like, does this, like, I love the Sword of Gryffindor from Harry Potter, I say it again, but it had an enchantment on it, which was, it only drinks in that which makes it stronger. And I think it's like, you are that metal, you are that sword, and you're gonna be putting yourself into a bath with this other person. But you may not only take in that which makes you stronger, you may just take in everything. And that may end up making you weaker. And when I say weaker, I mean less likely to achieve the things that you want or become the person that you want to become. And I think it's very hard for people because everyone is just so afraid of being alone. And I think maybe the first step is being okay with being alone. Being like, I would rather be with just me than be with someone who makes me less like me in order to be with them.
I mean, I remember, well, before we met, I'd been alone for like almost 2 years. I got out of a bad relationship and I was like, what am I doing? I don't want to recreate that again, you know? And I think being alone it's just never, and even so, like even now, if we both actually really like alone time, which I think is really important in terms of like, we don't have like high requirements, you know what I mean? Everything's such a bonus, which I think is actually what I really like, is things that when I was young were told, like you have needs, you have emotional needs, you have these. I think it was all a fucking lie. And I think it's actually really unhealthy if you have to put, quote, needs upon a partner. And I think I've become such a better person and a better spouse for looking at things as like bonuses. Like if we get to spend an afternoon together on Sunday afternoon, bonus. But if you tell me that you have to work or I tell you that I have to work, fine. I'm not gonna be upset about it. I'm gonna go do stuff for myself.
Yeah.
Right? Like
a lot of people don't know how to be busy. Basically, a lot of people have nothing going on in their lives.
Yeah, it's fair.
And so they require their spouse or significant other for attention, affection, and approval.
Dance monkey.
They need them. Yeah, they're like, hey, I'm bored, entertain me. And some people literally say that, which I find ridiculous. But I think a really good litmus test is, what is this person entering my life change about my behavior? And so thinking, okay, when I'm on my own, I work out like this, I eat like this, I work like this, I go to sleep at this time. These are the social things that I find meaningful or interesting. Now, when this person enters my life, how many of those things that when I had nothing interfering with me change in their expression? Do I work less? Do I work out less? Do I eat differently? Do I spend my time differently? Well, if that occurs, then all of those changes will certainly change the outputs of your life. And are those changes to the outputs what you want? And I think most people, if they really looked at themselves in the mirror, would be like, no.
Yeah. I think it's something really interesting that I want to actually prompt you for, which was if you remember the person who, when you decided that you thought, so we broke up, let's rewind. We were dating, we'd been working together for like 8 months, and then we broke up. This was the breakup for anyone watching. Alex was not talking to me much, and so I went into his office because we were working together, and I said, do you want to break up? And you said yes. And then we broke up. There was no drama, there was no fight, and then I was like, I'm still gonna go launch this gym.
I think you said, do you want me to leave?
I don't remember.
I think that's what you said.
I thought it was, do you want to break up? Either way. Maybe either way.
Sure.
Then it was like, okay, well, we're still gonna work together. I want to
still
go launch
talked every
this
day
gym.
after that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go launch this gym, and then during that time, we still worked together, but we talked at the end of the day, and I would call you and tell you like what was going on at the facility. What happened, and what was the conversation that you had during that time? Because I always thought that was such a great way for, like, if somebody's watching this and they don't know how to know if somebody's right for them, that somebody could use as a measurement tool.
So I'll say two things that were kind of the most significant from that. So one is how Layla handled the exit gave me such great insight to her character, which was like, it would be really normal. I would say 95, not even 90, 99 times out of 100, if I'd been in a relationship where someone had left what they were doing to come with me, and then, you know, we break up for whatever reason, they would probably just be like, screw this guy, and everything associated with him. But, I mean, I've always said, like, you stood tall when things were crumbling around me. The reason that, for me, when you, as I recall it, said, do you want me to leave? The answer was yes, because I was so overwhelmed. I had no bandwidth for anything. I was dealing with the DUI thing. I was dealing with the fraudulent partner. I had 2 other partners that were asking for me to do things in like 3 or 4 different businesses at the same time. I had nothing. Like, I had no bandwidth. I had 0 attention. And so it was more like, I just can't right now. Like, I don't even, the idea of a relationship is so low on my priorities list right now that when she left, it was just basically less guilt around not doing what I was, quote, supposed to be doing or thought I should be doing. And so it gave me some attention back so I could create room. And so the first thing was how you behaved on the exit was so classy and so filled with character and all the traits that I would deem admirable. You still showed loyalty when I basically didn't show you any. And then you showed me respect when I probably wasn't respectable in that moment. I wasn't worthy of respect given how much my life was in shambles at that moment. And I think that was probably big thing number 1 of like pro Layla. The other was that I saw a coach for 90 minutes every day during the time that you were gone. It was probably like 5 weeks, something like that. And during those 90 minutes every day, he would start with, what's top of mind? Like, what's on your mind? What's taking your attention? And so he would just slowly start stripping away, like, okay, let's deal with this, let's deal with this, let's deal with this. And just like kept working through this list. And when it came to, okay, so what are you gonna do about this girl? Because we're still talking every day, right?
Only about work though.
Yeah, which was amazing.
What do we do now?
Yeah, I know, nothing's changed. And so he said, well, look at your stats. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, look at your stats. He's like, when she's in your life, he's like, do you work out more or do you work out less? And I was like, well, she works out. So when she goes to the gym, I'm like, all right, I'll go. And if I want to go, she goes. So it's like we both, if one of us goes, the other one goes. And so I work out more because every time she wants to go and I don't want to go, I still go. He's like, okay. He's like, what about food? He's like, are you eating healthy or are you not eating? I was like, well, she preps food and she eats healthy. And so whatever she makes, I'll eat, right? And so, yeah, I'm actually, you know, I'm eating better, I'm eating a little healthier. And he was like, okay, plus. He's like, what about work? Does she support you with your work? And I was like, I mean, yeah, literally, she actually does the work with me. And I will literally take people when I'm busy so that I can stay, you know, like she basically protects my space. And he was like, okay, does she spend money? Do you make more now, just objectively, than you did before? And I was like, yeah, way more. He was like, huh. So you're healthier, you work out more, you make more money, you have somebody who's not draining, not even neutral, but adding to your financial goals, and is helping you focus on, because another part of this was I had all these different businesses. He's like, is she in favor of you having all this stuff, or is she in favor of you focusing on one thing? And I was like, she just says focus on this one thing that's working. He was like, so she's good decision making. And I was like, yeah, so she helps you make good decisions. And so basically we just went column by column and everything was up. And he was like, maybe something to consider. And so when Layla came back, I basically just told her this exact same thing. And I was like, when I am with you, I am better. And so I would like to be better. And so I would like to be with you. And so I think fundamentally that was one of the main decision points in our relationship. And when she went there, also, as a side note, so she showed me loyalty, she showed me respect, but also you crushed it. So it wasn't just like that you went through the motions when you went and did that launch when I wasn't there. You set the all-time record. And I think that was so telling for me about the type of person you were. Because like I was always used to being the guy who had to hit the team on his back or whatever to win the game. And it was just nice to have somebody else who could also, when the game was on the line, fucking crush. And so I was like, man, if there's two of us who can win when the game's on the line, then every time I wasn't going to win, if you win, then it just increases the likelihood we both win. And so I think for all those reasons, it became a logical decision to be with you. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in this one part, which is if you stay together, if you are together because of your emotions, you will want to not be together when your emotions change. And emotions change all the time. But logic rarely does. And so if it logically makes sense for you to be together, then when you're emotional, the logic will still be there. It still makes sense for us to be together. And I think that's what has, at least for me, allowed me to have very little second guessing, concern. It's just been like, no, this makes sense. Like, this makes complete sense. There's no, I have very little air. There's very little movement in that for me. Yeah, I think it was harder in the beginning, and it gets easier over time. Yeah. Like I think in the beginning we put in a lot of work. If I think about it, I think that we've gotten to like, I don't know if like reap the reward of that over time. Like it feels like it actually gets easier with time. It was a bet in the beginning.
Yeah, because it was so different from what either of us ever knew.
Totally.
But it just, and I think the first 3 years were really tough.
First 3.
But like now it just feels like just momentum. You know what I mean? Like our partnership, how we work together, how we understand each other. All those things take years to figure out.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
So when you were away and then you came back, why did you decide to get back in the relationship?
I think I just really understood where you were coming from when we broke up. Like I saw how things were when you were like, yeah, I want you to leave or break up or whatever. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I didn't take it personally.
It wasn't personal.
And I saw glimpses of you when you were not so stressed and inundated with all these decisions. And I really liked who that person was, and I felt like that we could really make each other better. And so I think that was part of it, is like I didn't take it personally, and I wasn't humiliated, embarrassed, angered. Like I wasn't angry about it. I didn't hold it against you in any way. So like the event itself of breaking up like was not a thing for me. I think that if I rewind, when I met you, I had a list of all the character traits that I wanted in a person, as well as like non-negotiables. And I remember that you matched.
DUI broke, all of those things. I was just checking.
DUI broke. That happened after.
Yeah.
Catch-22.
To be clear, I wasn't broke when Layla died. I became broke. Did that to myself.
Yeah. And so I think that I grounded myself in that logic, and I saw that you represented a lot of things that I had deficiencies in. I think that, like, complete self-acceptance, I don't know if you remember this. You know what I'm gonna say?
Go for it.
Like, it was like our second date or something, barely knew each other, and like you walked out of your room butt-ass naked. I remember this, and you were on the phone, and I was like, is he gonna come on? Like, what is going on? And then I literally remember you were like, what? And I was like, why? And you were like, I like walking around naked. And it's like such a little thing, but it was like, wow, I judge myself so much that I don't even want to walk around naked to see myself because of how critical I am. And I was like, wow, that's like so freeing. It must feel so freeing to be able to do that and also do it in front of somebody and not care what they're gonna think or say. And something that you just, like, so many things. The second was, you know, like, I think you told me on like our second date, like, the worst things that you'd ever done. Like, you're basically, these are the worst things about myself, the worst things I've ever done, and I don't want any secrets. And I recognized that I, again, judged myself so harshly for so many things that I'd done in the past that it, like, crippled me with insecurity. And they weren't even things that were a big deal, but they were a big deal because I kept them to myself. And so I think that along the way before that incident happened, like, I just recognized I had so much that I could learn from you, and I thought that you would make me better. Because I recognized, like, those were things that I lacked myself, and I believed that if I partnered with somebody who had those things, and I did recognize as well the things that maybe you were looking for that I had, it felt like a mutual exchange. Like, we got to take the best of each other, and it would make both of us better. And honestly, I grounded myself in the logic the whole time, which was just like, this makes sense to me. And I think that I had read a lot about lasting relationships and how the relationships that made the most sense logically are the ones that last longest. And all my relationships prior to that had been easy in the beginning, harder later on. This had been harder in the beginning, and it has continued to get easier as time has gone on. Like, now it feels like riding a bicycle. It's just like, I understand you, you understand me, we know how to work together. It only gets better over time. And so it's just really panned out.
I think the exchange thing is really interesting because I don't think I ever felt like I had an exchange with the person that I was dating.
What do you mean?
Like, I never even felt transactional at all, with the exception of you.
Oh.
And I mean, this was almost like an ongoing joke for the first, like, year of our relationship. I kept saying to Layla, like, I don't know if you're just, like, trying to absorb all of the things that I know and then you're just going to leave with all of my skills. Like, I felt like she would just, like, nonstop be like, can you teach me how to do this? Can you show me how to do this? Like, and I mean, I did have a lot of skills. And I was like, yeah, like, you know, like, you don't need to worry about too much about that. Like, I'll keep running the ads. Like, you don't need to worry how that works. Because I was so afraid that she would actually, like.
You thought I was slippery.
Yeah, this is my own